Boltrail is a patented new system for templating anchor bolts. It's designed to position and hold anchor bolts over all kinds of formwork quickly, easily, and securely. Let's learn a little bit about this product. It comes in 4 different lengths. It comes in a 26-inch length, a 33-inch length, a 45-inch length, and a 55-inch length. When I say 26-inch or 33-inch or 45-inch, that is the maximum clamping width of the product. You can see that Boltrail has one end that will telescope in and out, and what that does is it allows this tool to sit over any form that's smaller than its size and cinch up to it. It's got these handy little pedestals that it sits on, so it sits up above your forms, allowing you room underneath to get in and finish the concrete. It's got excellent bolt holders that will slide, allowing you to position where your anchor bolts go. I'm going to pull one of these up a bit closer to the camera here. These guys are sleeved, so I've got a system that can hold a 3/4 inch bolt, or you pop out the first sleeve, a 1-inch bolt, and I can pop out another sleeve, and then it goes to a 1 1/4 inch bolt. So we can do 3 bolt sizes without picking up a tool. Advantages are that we're not worrying about, are we drilling straight through a fabricated template. Things are always vertical, square, and true. Boltrail is made out of LVL laminated veneer lumber that's North American sourced, and the plastic components are on automotive grade nylon with glass fiber reinforcing, so it's fairly stiff and strong. The parts are injected right here in Edmonton, Alberta, so this is 100% Canadian North American product. None of it is made overseas. So, in use, Boltrail has supports that swivel. I'll bring this up to the camera so you guys can see here. We have supports that swivel with alignment guides designed into the supports. This swiveling support on either side with the alignment guides gives me the ability to install Boltrail in any orientation on a form. So, as we were talking, in the most simplest basic installation over a pile cap, you can place it right on your whalers or your forms, or you can put it up on these pedestals, which is how we recommend you use it because it gives you that ability to get underneath it. But you have the ability to place this product in any orientation and still catch an edge. So it's infinitely variable, if you can see that on the videos. It can go into any orientation, and not just on opposite sides of the form, but it can even catch 2 parallel edges of form if need be. So if you guys are doing something where your pile cap is going to sit below slab, and you're not too concerned about getting the edges of your formwork aligned with the grid lines of your project because you're never going to see that pile cap, it's supporting a column in a big warehouse, it's under slab. You don't need with Boltrail to get this framing or your pile cap exactly in line with the project grid lines, because Boltrail will get into the exact position it needs to be to place your anchor bolts. A lot of people ask us, well, how do you get it into the right place? Well, there's a lot of things you can do with it. It's a very versatile tool. But one of the simplest things is whether you're working with depending on the kind of installation you're doing, whether you're working with a streamline, whether you're working with a surveyor, the first step is to basically find where the center of your bolt pattern is going to pass through, and we mark that on our forms. Now, I don't know if you can see it through the not so great camera that's on this video conference, but I've got the center line marked here on my forms already. If you were doing something that's a standalone, like a light pole or something like that, or a flagpole, you don't, and your structure is not going to connect to another structure through some kind of a beam, then all you really need to do is, measure your whalers, cut that measurement in half, and you can find the center line fairly quickly just with a tape measure. If you're doing something that's precise, that has to be tied into like multiple columns tying through beams on a bigger structure, then it helps to have a surveyor tell you where things are going, and they come out with their fancy electronic wands and they'll mark it exactly where things need to go. But once you've found that center point, we what I sometimes do is I just use the bolt rail as my straight edge, and then I put a little square up against it, and I measure out half my bolt spacing, and in this case that's 4 inches, and I mark it on the side, and then I use this little tool to run my marks down the side of the whalers. And I've already done that just for ease of installation. Because once I've got whether you're using a surveyor to help you find where it goes, and sometimes they just position the bolt rails actually working off the bolts that are hanging on it. We'll do that in a little bit. But once you've got that mark going down the side, you can simply find that center mark as to where your bolts need to go in that diamond-shaped window. That window does not rotate out of center if you have to do a weird installation, so it stays where it needs to go. So what I'm going to do is just on the most basic pile cap setting, I'm going to do a full install, and I'll speak about it as I go, but you guys will see exactly how quickly this system goes together once you've marked the locations of it. And then we'll talk a little bit about all the other different ways that this product can be utilized, because it is quite versatile. I'm going to hang some bolts on it as well. I'll just put those down here. One thing I want to talk to you guys about very quickly is this innovative screw that we're using. So Boltrail is now the Canadian stocking distributor of these screws. I'm going to pull it up here so you guys can take a look at it. These are duplex construction screws. They have a tall hexagonal head on them. We install them using a magnetic setter here that will just hold the bolts. The big advantage to this is how easily it goes in and out, and there's nothing to strip. So we were doing demonstrations of Boltrail with wood screws when we first got started, and you know, we're selling a product that's reusable. People are getting multiple reuses out of this product. But with the wood screws, we would install them, and after a couple of uses of the screws would start to strip, and you'd put them in and you couldn't get them out. When Glenn found these screws, it was a game changer for us, and it'll be a game changer for you whether you guys are installing Boltrail or you're doing anything in construction that has to be undone, from formwork for stairs and flat work to you know, just about anything. If you have to take it out afterwards, these screws are great. So let's go on with the install. So I've marked on the sides of the forms the center lines of where my anchor bolts have to fall. So in use, and I've got the advantage here of a demo unit that's on casters, so I can turn this around. The handiwork of our talented field operations guy, Glenn Sawyer. So all I'm doing here is I'm finding the mark of where the anchor bolts need to pass through the form in my sight window, and then I'm putting in a couple of these duplex screws. 2 screws are enough. Now we've got the ability, I'm just going to show you guys the flexibility here. Turn this around. One end is now set. This end is still able to rotate and move. So we've got this incredible flexibility in placement, and all I have to do now is put a couple of screws on this end as well. So I'm just going to find the center line of my survey point and put a couple of screws in here. This bolt rail is now exactly in line with where the anchor bolts need to fall. The second rail, I can repeat the process. I can find the survey points, locate them in my supports, and put more screws in. I also have the ability, if I've got the first one set, to set it from the first one. So I can put edge-to-edge measurement equivalent to my bolt spacing. I do that at 2 ends to keep things parallel, and I can set the second one off of the first one. In this instance, since we've already got the point surveyed, I'm just going to just use the survey marks. But there's one other thing that we can do, and I'm just going to talk about it. Maybe it'll be a little bit. It's a little bit. If I start hanging everything, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you guys the basic install. But I want to talk about one other thing we do. If you guys are doing a large warehouse, you've got 1,000 columns in it, and you've got 600 columns on the inside of a warehouse, let's say, or 50 or 100 or whatever it might be, that have the same anchor bolt pattern and spacing. One of the advantages of this system is that I can get things in place and fasten them in after the fact. So if I've got the first bolt rail fixed to my forms and it's not moving, I can leave the second one loose, and I can leave my bolt holders loose and hang my anchor bolts over them, and I can use what we call a master template. And all it is a piece of plywood that's got the 4 holes in the correct spacing and the center marked in the middle of it. The advantage now is that if I've got the first rail set and I'm going to be doing the exact same pattern over and over, I can hang my anchor bolts and I can slip this master template over top of the bolts, and because this first one is fixed in the right place, I just have one axis to worry about, and I can just get all 4 anchor bolts in the right location, working off the center of it, remove that, fix everything in place, and I'm done. So when you use something like that on a repetitive job, you can get anchor bolt setting times well under 5 minutes. But here I'm going to just proceed with our installation as we've done it with our survey points. So find the survey mark and fix in place. So it's still got that flexibility, and I can find my survey mark and fix it in place. I can also at this point, before I set things in place, I can double check the measurements with a tape just as a quality control measure as I'm moving along. And there we go. So the rails are now in the right place. The next step is to find the center line of the bolt pattern in the other axis. So we did this direction first, we're going to do this direction next. Whether you're working with a surveyor or a string line, or sometimes what we'll do is we'll measure the space between the 2 supports and cut it in half, and that also works quite well, provided your formwork is in the correct location. And then once we've got that center line marked, and I've already pre-marked it to make the demonstration a little bit faster, we just measure half the bolt spacing over and mark it. I've actually, once I've got the 2 marks, I just use a straight edge to run those lines across with a pencil or a Sharpie, and then I'm going to just pull one of these bolt rails out and bring it closer to the camera so you guys can see here, because the bolt holders have a little notch here on all 4 sides there. That notch was designed into the part so that when you put this in place, that you can actually see where you've marked the rail. It's for finding your survey mark, your survey point there. So the rest becomes pretty easy. I align it with my marks and I put some screws in. Did I say I love these screws? I love these screws. So once I've got that first one in place, and you know I've got survey marks on here so that I can follow, but you have the ability also to set your second rail off of your first one. So I can just measure edge to edge the spacing of my bolts, which will be the same thing from center to center, or I can run with the survey points that I've got as well, and then it's just a matter of putting some screws in to set these up. And I got to show you guys something that's pretty cool about this system. 2 things that are really cool. If I'm doing a 6-bolt pattern, I can add more bolt holders into the rails. I can have my, if I'm working with J bolts, even if they're up to 1.25 inches in size, I can put them on the holders first. And we always recommend not top and bottom, as you would with a good standard built from scratch templating system. But I can hang that bolt and I can drop it into place through the rail. This gives me the advantage to fish it around rebar, okay? Drop into place. I can do my final positioning after the fact and then secure it in place. It makes the placement of anchor bolts much, much simpler if we do it that way. I put my, there it is. So I can again work off the survey points. Sometimes if I get lazy, I just line it up with the previous bolt holder as well. So you can also do that. You can hang everything. I've fixed things in place. You can leave them loose. Double check your measurements. Make sure that your diagonals are equivalent to make sure it's a square installation. But, I'm just going to do the demo here and put these. You guys can see how quickly these screws go in. All right. And then here's the last one. I'm just going to position it and fix it in place. Find my survey mark in my little notch here. There it is. So sometimes we see guys working with surveyors, and the surveyor will mark the center of the bolt, and he'll have his wand on top of it, and he'll tell the guy exactly where to stop and put it in. So that's another way that you can do it. And last but not least, I put 2 screws in here on the pier just to lock everything down. Done. So all I got to do now is hang the bolts. So I've got 4 anchor bolts here. You can come in underneath and hang them. If you've got the bent J bolts, you can fish them in through the top with the holes. But if you don't, if you've got straight bolts with nuts on them, you do have to come up underneath them. The other option is you can hang your bolts from the rails before you drop the whole assembly in place, and then do your final positioning of your bolt holders and anchor bolts, and then fix it in place. That's another way to do it. If you've got a lot of rebar congestion and it's tough to get things through, it makes sense to have everything loose, drop it in, and then do your final positioning and screw things in place. So I'm not sure if anybody's timing me here. I talked a fair bit while I was doing this, but I think it's a fairly quick installation, and it's a simple thing. You know, we'll talk about the advantages here. So I'm not buying lumber. I'm not handling that material. I don't have to measure it, take it to one station and cut it, take it to another station to drill it, get it to site, you know, find out that I've made a mistake and have to tear it out, cancel my pour, go back to the shop, drill out holes or build new templates, etc. The Boltrail system is ready to use. It's simple, it's fast, it's easy, it's accurate, it saves time, it saves money. We see a lot of schedule gain. The one nice thing is it's very easy to modify. So if I've made a mistake on the construction site with the installation, whether it was a poor measurement or if the form got bumped and shifted by a 1/4 of an inch or something, I have the ability within a minute to undo these screws and fix that placement. So I'm just going to grab another bolt rail here. I'll be right back. I see another one right here. So we do make this product in 4 different lengths. I just wanted to have one to hold on to while I talked. So we do make the product in 4 different lengths, and it's a lot of people are asking us, you know, well, how much load does that hold? Like, I'm going to hang some heavier bolts, so you know, people, it doesn't look maybe quite robust when you look at it on the video, but these things are very robust. I can stand on this. And there's no flex in it whatsoever. I can stand on the 55-inch one and there's no flex on it. So it'll hold 200 pounds without any issue. That's going to be more load than you're going to hang on one of these things if you're hanging anchor bolts, even if you're doing 1.25-inch bolts. Saves a huge amount of labor. So that was one of the big things, right? We were seeing templates taking a long time to build. The task was full of mistakes. Causing schedule loss and delays, causing cost overruns. What we're seeing from people who are using this in the field is, you know, they're easily getting 6 reuses out of it. They're getting a template or anchor bolt pattern set in the 5-minute mark, 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes less as they get better at it. They have instant adjustability for quality control. One of the things we hear very frequently is, hey, your product helped me keep my project on track. I didn't have to cancel my pour, and so that's one thing that keeps coming back. In use, because it's so fast and easy, we find that surveying costs come down because the surveyor is not on site as long as he needs to be. We're hearing that, geez, we didn't have to flame cut base plates or straighten anchor bolts. So there's all these advantages that save money. We always say that Boltrail's less expensive than having to redo something, right? So incredibly easy to do, apprentice friendly is the term we like to use. You know, we've got this task down to nothing more than a tape measure, some duplex screws, and a cordless drill. So that's all it takes to install the system. Let's talk about money. The system retails in the $80 to $100 range per rail. So if you guys are doing, you know, you're buying a 26-inch long unit, they retail around, currently for this year, about $79 for one rail. So you're into it at just under 160 for two of them for the shortest size. They go up by about a $5 increment because there's more wood in it, and the handling and storage is more expensive and whatnot. But the longest one comes in around $97 retail. So when you get two of these in the, let's say, $180 range, and you know, even if you get one reuse out of it, you're already saving a huge amount of time compared to building templates from scratch, which you typically use once and throw away. Even with one reuse, you're way ahead of schedule in terms of labor and schedule gain, but your cost comes down to the $80, $90 range, which is significantly less than what most companies are currently budgeting to build a template from scratch or to set up for anchor bolts. When you get into a situation where you're getting 3, 4, 5, 6 reuses out of it, then it just becomes not even something that you can compare, because you're now down to $30 per pile cap from what we hear in the industry these days as well. We budget, you know, $200 to $250 per pile cap to set our anchor bolts up. We're now in the $30 range, you know, and we've saved, you know, for that $180 investment in the bolt rail, we've just saved maybe 10 hours of labor, you know. So that's the kind of thing we're hearing. Yeah, even on a small job with, let's say, 100 columns, we're hearing schedule gains of, you know, days, you know, $10,000 in savings back into the pockets of the companies who are using it. So it's been a big success in terms of that side of it, from the economy side of it. But the really big thing is this: it's the quality, it's the not having to do the rework, it's that the steel fits when it comes onto site, the bolts are straight. It's instantly adjustable to fix mistakes. You're not having to cancel pours if something goes wrong. So that's the really big reason why you'd want to use this thing. It just keeps things on track and keeps the, you know, things from going sideways. Now we've shown you guys the standard over top of a form installation, and it works with sonotube forms. We usually see these picture frames built around them because you need something to brace this down to the ground so it doesn't move. So it's great for light standards and building columns. I'm just going to turn it here. You can see we've actually used our duplex screws here. They come in 3 different lengths. We use the 1 1/4 inch for installation of bolt rail, but we have 1 5/8 inch and 2 3/4 inch ones for forming and things like that. So we've got them in two longer sizes than what I've been using here. It works on plywood and wood forms. It also works on steel and aluminum forms. So if if you're using the reusable metal forms to use the bolt rail system, all you have to do is fasten a scrap piece of 2x4 to the steel form, so you have something to screw the system into. So we've seen you know, that use. So a lot of people ask us, can you use it with steel and aluminum forms? Yes, it's very easy to do. In fact, they teach that in a couple of carpentry schools in Michigan. So bolt rail has become part of the curriculum in some carpentry schools, which is very exciting for us. But moving away from those sort of standard situations, we also run into situations where bolt rail is being used to set anchor bolts in the middle of slab pours or large footings. So this is the other big challenging thing that the industry runs up against, is that if you're doing a large pour and you're in the middle of a concrete pour and you have to cast anchor bolts into a slab, how do you do it? Well, you can sit bolt rail on top of false work. and the falsework can span the width of the form, or the falsework can be just a couple of pairs of 2x4s that are suspended above the slab pour with some ready rods. All you have to do is get the 2x4s at the right elevation above the pour, and then you've got a platform to put the bolt rail on. Now the nice thing is that you don't have to take the time to get those 2x4s parallel or aligned or at the right distance apart. They just have to be at the right elevation, and they can be at some weird skewed angle, because bolt rail has that ability to adjust because of the rotating supports there. We can catch any angle of support. And I'm going to show you guys some pictures of that in a second. The other thing that can happen is that if you've got falsework and things start to get tall, well, if you sit the bolt rail on top of the falsework, then you're too tall. You don't have the projection in the anchor bolts to get that high. Well, bolt rail can be flipped around. I've just pulled the bolt holders out of this one. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to put the bolt holders in from the other side. So you've got the versatility now of hanging the bolt rail from your falsework. And we have the, I'm going to pull this a little bit closer to the camera, because what we have is we have the ability to catch that falsework from the outside edges of the falsework, or we have the ability to turn these supports and catch them, or one from one side, one from the inside, or both from the inside. It's got all this versatility. And that falsework, again, it doesn't have to be parallel, it doesn't have to be in the right location. Bolt rail has the ability to adjust to get into the correct location on that falsework. Let me show you guys a couple of photos of that. I've got a neat little poster here where I'm going to just pull it up to the camera here. You guys can see that all right. So here we've got a job where we've got bolt rail hanging from falsework. So they've flipped them upside down, they're pouring, and they're putting anchor bolts in the middle of the slab. Here they've used it similarly. They're supporting one end off of falsework, and they're doing anchor bolts around the perimeter of a slab. Here they've been cut down to shorter length and dropped inside forms. This installation I'm going to show you guys in a second. Here this is a pad base for a pump for Trans-Canada pipelines. And then your typical light standard. This is great because you've got so much room to get the conduit up through the bolt rail. This was for a feed lot. These guys set a record. They did 48 pile caps, all the anchor bolts set. They did it in just under 4.5 hours. So I think that must be a world record. We should contact Guinness. So one other thing here, we kind of talked about the various ways you can use the product. I'm going to do one thing here. I'm going to pull out one of our supports. Bolt rail is completely a symmetrical product. I can take out supports and put them in from the opposite sides. One of the supports always goes into the fixed end. The other one always goes into the sliding support. Now I've created a template here that I can support one end off of forms, and I can hang the other end off of, I'll flip it this way, I can support one end off of formwork, and I can hang the other end off of falsework. Where would you use the bolt rail like this? Well, if you guys are doing a big pad or a slab and you have to put anchor bolts around the perimeter of it, you've got formwork on the outside of your pour, you can put falsework parallel to the edge of your form, you can catch this end on your falsework that is hanging out over your pour, and this end can sit on your forms around the perimeter of your slab, and now you've got a way to hang anchor bolts out over the edge of your formwork. Now, you still have the adjustability of, your falsework doesn't have to be exactly parallel to the edge of the form. It can be not the right distance apart. You have the ability to get this into any angle or orientation because of all of that versatility designed into the product. The other place where this comes into effect is if you're pouring concrete against existing structures. So you might, we saw this a few times where they were putting in a freestanding crane on the inside of a building, and the pile caps for the freestanding crane columns were tight up against existing concrete walls grade beams. And so they had formwork, they formed up against the existing structure, but they didn't have formwork on the other side. So what they did was they attached a 2x4 hanger to the wall. This end went onto the 2x4. This end sat on the formwork on the outside of the forms. I guess it would be the inside of the building, the inside form. And then you had all the adjustability to position and place your anchor bolts. fast and easy, anybody can do it. How are we doing for time?
Time for questions.
Time for questions. Okay, so I'll just wrap up by saying a very high quality, versatile product that takes a huge amount of the labor and guesswork out of placing anchor bolts, that it's going to give you schedule gain, time and money savings, but really just the quality control is excellent, and it's going to keep your schedule on track.